Equals I stood on the edge of Coral Heights, the salty sea breeze tousling my hair as I looked out over the sprawling town that had been my home for nearly my entire life. The sun hung low in the sky, painting everything in warm hues of orange and pink, but today those colors felt bruised, darkened by the memories of betrayal that loomed over me. "It's a beautiful day, Rachel," I whispered to myself, forcing a smile, but the beauty surrounding me felt like a cruel joke. The tiny seaside town was buzzing with life. Children played on the beach, couples strolled hand in hand, and I could hear laughter cutting through the air like a knife. Yet none of that mattered to me. All I could think about was the day that shattered my life and the people who orchestrated my downfall. I inhaled deeply, letting the scent of salt and sun-soaked sand fill my lungs. "They think it's over," I muttered softly, clenching my fists until my fingernails bit into my palms. I could still feel the sting of betrayal as clearly as if it had happened yesterday. Nearly a year had passed, but time had done little to dull the edges of my anger. The wind picked up, whipping around me as if the universe was reminding me of my purpose. "Revenge is a cold dish," my mother used to say, but I could not help but feel the fire warming my heart. I turned away from the beach and towards my childhood home, the simple two-story house with its white picket fence and bright blue shutters that used to feel so safe. Now, as I walked up the cracked, faded path, it felt like a tomb, filled with echoes of laughter that now haunted me. "Rachel," my mother's voice called from the kitchen, laced with worry. I could picture her standing there, hands in soapy water and apron tied around her waist. "Is that you? You're home early." I pushed open the door and stepped inside, letting the familiar scent of baked cookies wash over me. It was comforting yet suffocating. "Hey, Mom," I replied, forcing brightness into my tone as though I was trying to convince myself alongside her. My mother looked up, wiping her hands on a towel. "You're just in time for cookies. I made your favorite." She offered a warm smile that faltered ever so slightly as she took in my expression. "What's wrong, honey? You look troubled." I sighed, the weight of my thoughts pressing down on my chest. "It's nothing, just had a rough day at work, you know." I walked toward her, forcing every step to feel casual, yet I could feel the tension coiled tightly in my muscles. "What about you? Anything exciting happened today?" She narrowed her eyes, clearly unconvinced by my smile. "You know I don't have excitement in my life like you do with yours, right? Any new songs? You've been so quiet about your music lately." She always knew when something wasn't right. "Not really, just busy with things at the restaurant." I avoided her gaze, focusing on the array of cookies on the counter. They looked as inviting as they always did, but my appetite had all but vanished, replaced by a gnawing need for something more. "How is everything around here anyways?" "Oh, you know," she resumed her task, her voice lightening. Same old, same old. The town had a pet parade last weekend. You should have seen how adorable little Max looked in his hot dog costume." "I missed you. I wish you had come." As she spoke, my mind drifted to the swarm of familiar faces I had avoided at all costs. Friends turned to strangers because of betrayal. "Maybe next time," I replied absently, already planning my escape. "I need to go take care of a few things." A frown crossed her face the way it always did when I attempted to pull away. "Rachel, you can't keep avoiding everyone. It's not healthy." I felt a sharp pang in my chest at her concerns, but I couldn't let her see how much that guilt stung. "I'll be fine, Mom. I just need some time to myself." I grabbed a cookie, the chocolate chips melting against my fingers, and took a slight bite, the sweetness momentarily distracting me from the bitterness swirling within. She studied me cautiously before continuing her work on the dishes. "Fine, but you know I'm here whenever you need to talk." "Thanks," I replied, and after stealing one more cookie, I retreated upstairs to my bedroom, the place where I had laughed, cried, and dreamed of glorious futures that now felt shattered. The walls were painted a soft lavender, adorned with guitars and framed pictures of my past, but all the memories felt tainted beneath the shadow of betrayal. I sank onto my bed, the familiar creak of the floorboards sounding heavy around me. I gazed out my window towards the flickering lights of Coral Heights beyond the horizon and found my mind drifting to them, the perpetrators of my ruin. My thoughts turned dark as I recalled the day everything changed. "How dare they?" I whispered, clenching my fists tighter. "How dare they take everything from me?" I took out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the one name I had avoided but needed to face. "Marissa," I breathed, her name shaking on my lips like a task I dreaded. She was once my closest friend, my confidant, the person I shared secrets with and who encouraged me to follow my dreams, but that all crumbled to dust the moment she turned her back on me. Before I could change my mind, I tapped on her name and stared at the screen, uncertainty sending a twitch of electricity through my veins. I waited for the dialing tone to start, but only found my heart racing as it rang, each sound echoing louder in the silence of my room. Finally, I heard her voice on the other end. "Hello, Marissa," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but all that was left was a thread of tension. "It's Rachel. Rachel, I wasn't expecting to hear from you," she exclaimed. The surprise in her tone stoked the embers of my anger. "Yeah, well, there's a reason for that. Are you okay?" She sounded genuinely concerned and even hinted at the possibility of wanting to apologize, but a bitter chuckle escaped my lips. "No, I'm not okay." "What do you mean, did something happen?" I took a deep breath, letting the heat swirl in my chest. "You betrayed me, Marissa, you and Jason. I don't think I will ever be okay with that." Her voice turned cautious. Rachel, no, I interrupted sharply, my heart racing. Don't even, you've had enough time to explain yourself, and I'm done waiting for an apology that will never come. Please, let's talk about this, she pleaded, but I could hear the crack in her voice, the uncertainty that made me feel strangely powerful. I don't want to talk, I want to know why you chose him over me, why you thought it was okay to throw away our friendship for. I hesitated, my breath hitching at the memories of moments shared with them. For someone who treated me like a fool, Jason didn't mean to hurt you, you know that, right? But I was no longer interested in her excuses. This isn't about Jason, this is about you and me. Rachel, please, can we meet? I want to explain everything in person. I let out a long breath, my mind racing. And what am I supposed to say to you? Oh, let's just forget everything and be friends again. I didn't want to hurt you, you have to believe me. Believe you, I spat. You think I could believe anything that came out of your mouth after what you did? It's too late for that. Silence lingered between us, heavy and painful. I could hear her breathing on the other end, and every second felt like a countdown to an unspoken reckoning. Rachel, goodbye, Marissa. I ended the call, pressing my phone against my forehead. A wave of anger surged through me, but beneath it was an gnawing sense of betrayal that twisted deep inside, a silent storm brewing, and I could feel it rising to the surface. I opened my window, wanting to breathe in the fresh air, but the salt in the air burned my nostrils as if it were the very essence of my pain. What did I do now? I was, alone, broken, ashamed. No one in Coral Heights knew what had happened. The betrayal lay hidden behind closed doors. With every day that passed, my rage simmered and grew. I could not ignore it anymore. I needed to make them pay for every tear, every sleepless night, and every dream they shattered. In that moment, beneath the fading sunlight, an idea ignited within me, an idea that whispered one thing: revenge. It was a path that could lead me away from the shadows of despair, a chance to reclaim my life and restore my dignity. Gathering my resolve, I let the anger fuel me. I would plan, because in this beautiful town that had once felt like home, my enemies walked free, but not for long. The wheels of fate were turning, and Coral Heights would soon witness my retribution. I woke up the next morning with the salty air of Coral Heights drifting through the open window, the sun pouring in like molten gold onto my face. The vibrant colors of the beach outside sang promises of a new day, but inside my head, my heart was a stormy sea. The events of last night played over like a broken record, my confrontation with David lingering like a shadow over my resolve. I swung my feet over the side of the bed, letting my toes brush the cool wooden floor, and took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I needed to do next. Okay, Rachel, no turning back now, I whispered to myself, as if words alone could fortify my determination. I glanced at my reflection in the mirror above my dresser with its peeling paint and smudged surface. The dark circles under my eyes betrayed how little sleep I had gotten. My mind had been racing with plans, weaving intricate webs of action and consequence. I splashed cold water over my face, the briskness snapping me into sharper focus. I needed a plan, and it needed to be smart. Revenge is a dish best served cold, after all. After a quick shower, the scent of lavender shampoo still clinging to my wet hair, I dressed in a simple blue sundress that hugged my curves in just the right places. Coral Heights was notorious for its beachy vibe, and I wanted to blend in, to become invisible, while I worked my way toward my ultimate goal. I stepped outside, feeling the embrace of the warm sun against my skin and the soft breeze that carried the murmur of the waves crashing against the shore. As I made my way down to the little cafe where I worked, thoughts of my plans for David filled my mind. David Turner, the man who had turned my life into a chaotic mess, slashed my dreams apart and left me in the gutter when I had once trusted him with everything. I was ready to make him feel the way I had felt, lost, betrayed, and hopeless. Revenge was not a notion I thought I'd embrace, but what do you do when the person you love transforms into a monster? You become the stronger monster. I pushed through the cafe door, greeted by the comforting smells of fresh coffee and baked pastries. The bell jangled overhead, and as soon as I stepped inside, Chloe, my best friend and coworker, greeted me with a bright smile, her hair a wild swirl of curls bouncing around her head. She was the kind of person who found joy in the smallest things. She always lifted my spirits. Hey you, she exclaimed, pouring a cup of coffee for me without asking, as if she could sense my need for caffeine. You look like you survived a hurricane. What happened? Just a lot on my mind, I replied, taking the steaming mug from her and wrapping my fingers around it, welcoming the warmth. I leaned against the counter, letting the smell of fresh pastries mix with the strong coffee aroma. You know, life and all that. Life, or are we talking about the David saga? You know I am ready for the updates. She leaned in closer, her expression starting to mirror my internal turmoil. Chloe had always been my confidant, especially during my turbulent relationship with David, who was nothing but a memory I wanted to erase more than anything. I sighed, knowing I could trust her. Last night was intense. We had a huge argument, and I finally told him I couldn't keep living in his shadow, waiting for the scraps of a life he offered me. It was like a dam bursting. Good for you, she said, her voice heavy with encouragement. You deserve so much better than him, especially after everything he put you through. She crossed her arms, her stance firm and protective. Tell me you are not thinking of going back again. I swear I'll throw something if you do. No, I'm done with that. I want him to feel the pain he caused me. For once, I want him to understand what it's like to be on the other side, because what he did to me, it was unforgivable. Chloe nodded slowly, concern etched on her features. Rachel, just be careful, you might end up in deeper than you think. Revenge isn't just giving him a taste of his own medicine, it can consume you. I know, my voice was steady, but inside my heart raced. A part of me was excited at the prospect, but another part hesitated, battling morality and the weight of my own emotions. But I can't let this go. This time I am going to get what I want. I am going to make him feel helpless just like I was. Chloe frowned slightly but then softened. Fair enough, just keep me in the loop. She walked away to tend to a group of customers, and I surfed the wave of my resolve. I had a string of ideas dancing in my mind, each one more elaborate than the last. As the morning passed into afternoon, I served tables, but my thoughts were fixated on David, on how to expose him, the real him. The darkness he hid behind that charming smile could be his undoing. He was a master of deception, but I had seen the cracks, and I would exploit them. My heart pounded at the thought. This was not going to be an easy task, but I was prepared to play my cards right. I finished my shift, feeling more energized as the adrenaline coursed through me. By the time I stepped outside into the golden hour, the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon, I had a solid plan in place. It was time to put the first step of my plan into action. I decided to go home to change before heading to the bar where David and his friends often hung out. It was a dive called the Rusty Anchor, known for its live music and cheap drinks. I knew very well that David would be there, surrounded by people who admired him, completely unaware of the storm I was brewing. As I took a moment to prepare myself in front of the mirror, wearing a fitted black top and high-waisted jeans, my confidence grew. The last remnants of vulnerability were shedding from me like dead skin, and I felt the fire in my gut. You can do this. This is the new you, I encouraged myself, and for the first time in a long time I felt powerful. I applied dark eyeliner to accentuate my eyes, transforming my look from vulnerable to fierce. The light traffic on the way to the Rusty Anchor offered a moment of tranquility, the sunset painting the sky with hues of orange and magenta. But as soon as I pulled into the parking lot, my heart started to race again. I spotted David's truck, familiar and still somewhat familiar to me. With every step I took toward the entrance, my heartbeat drummed in my ears like a war anthem. I pushed through the door into the smoky atmosphere filled with lively chatter and music strumming from some live band in the corner. The smell of beer and fried food wafted through the air, but what caught my attention was the unmistakable laughter and boisterous cheers coming from a group of men at the far end of the bar. There he was. David, with his dark, tousled hair and that charming smile, his arms thrown back in a laugh as he joked with his friends. For a fleeting moment, the sight of him pushed me back to our happier days, but I quickly quashed that memory. I had to remind myself who he truly was, the man who had shattered my heart. "Hey, over here," David called abruptly, and his laugh cut through my thoughts like a knife. I straightened up, squaring my shoulders. His friends turned to look as I approached, and I was instantly met with mixed expressions of surprise and curiosity. "Rachel," David called as I stepped closer, eyebrows raised in feigned surprise. There was something about the way he looked at me with that playful half-smile, thinking I'd come to beg for his attention. "David," I said his name through clenched teeth, masking the disdain simmering beneath the surface. I leaned against the bar, seemingly casual, but the tension in my posture was palpable. "I thought I might find you here." His friends all exchanged glances, one of them nudging another as they watched the interaction play out, clearly interested in how this would unfold. "I was just telling the guys about our wonderful breakup," he said with a smirk, his confidence oozing through every word. I could feel the flames of anger starting to rise within me. "Is that right? I hope you told them how you strung me along for years, playing house but never allowing me a real piece of your life." He shrugged, still too cocky for my taste, and gestured grandly with his beer bottle. "Come on, Rachel, you know that was never my intention, you were just too high maintenance." His friends snickered and my blood boiled. High maintenance, me? This was the man who had no clue how to do anything other than charm. "I was never the problem, David. You just wanted a trophy, something pretty to show off while you fished for attention elsewhere." The laughter ceased, and I could sense the shift in energy. David's smile faltered, but for a split second I saw anger flash in his eyes. "That is low, even for you, Rachel. Low, you think that's low? You have no idea how low you've made me feel. But tonight I've decided to change that," I declared, drawing closer, fueled by the realization that the moment had finally come for me to use my voice, my power. His arrogance made him reckless. "What are you going to do?" He scoffed, trying to regain control of the situation, but I could sense the unease creeping along the edges of his bravado. Before I could answer, I glanced at his friends, their attention rapt. "You," I pointed directly at David, letting the fury and pain roll off my tongue. "You took everything from me. You stole my confidence, my trust, and most importantly, my dreams. But it is time for you to feel the same loss you inflicted on me. I've learned how to fight back." With that, everything shifted. The energy in the air crackled like static electricity. I felt alive, every nerve in my body igniting as I prepared to lay out my plan. I knew David couldn't fathom the storm that was coming, and I intended to take him down with his own lies. The silence stretched between us, and gradually David's expression morphed into one of confusion, then concern. "What are you talking about? Consider this a warning," I said with an edge that cut deeper than I ever intended. "I am going to expose you for who you really are, the charming prince with the ugly truth, and there is nothing anyone can do to stop me." Expose me, he echoed, his voice laden with disbelief. The tension in the room swelled as I pushed off the bar with determination brewing within me. You'll see, David, everything that is hidden will be brought to the light and you will never regain what you've lost. This is my payback. For a moment I hesitated, awestruck by the gravity of my words. What kind of war was I declaring? Yet there was no turning back. The taste of revenge was sweet and intoxicating. I turned to walk away, hearing whispers and confused murmurs from David's friends behind me. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, a rush of exhilaration coursed through me, and I knew this moment marked the beginning of something both terrifying and liberating. I would not back down. Rachel, wait. David called out after me, but I kept walking, the resolve thickening within my veins. I made my way back to my car, heart pounding, embers of my fury turning to flames. David could play his games, but I had my own. This was not just revenge, this was reclaiming my power. As I drove back home under the canopy of stars, their brightness reflected the light growing inside me. I felt reborn, a phoenix rising from my own ashes, and I smiled. The long game had only just begun. I sat in my car, the engine murmuring softly while the sun dipped low in the sky, colors bleeding across the horizon like an artist haphazardly tossing paint onto a canvas. Coral Heights was supposed to be a sanctuary, a place where old dreams could breathe again, but with every passing hour it felt more like a cage. I had spent the last couple of days in quiet contemplation, allowing the weight of my plan to settle in my gut like an old friend. Today was the day to step into the chaos. My fingers drummed nervously on the steering wheel, the rhythmic tapping aligning with the frantic beat of my heart. I glanced at the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of my reflection. My eyes were wide, betraying the simmering excitement and fear that bubbled beneath the surface. You can do this, Rachel. You deserve this, I whispered to my own reflection, almost seeking approval from the woman staring back at me. Shoving the doubts aside, I took a deep breath, inhaling the tangy scent of salt water mingling with the faint whiff of brewing coffee from the beachside cafe a few blocks away. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, each scenario playing out in my mind, yet the reality felt heavier than I had anticipated. Drawing in another steadying breath, I opened the car door. The late afternoon breeze wrapped around me like a cool embrace as I stepped out onto the pavement. The soft crunch of gravel underfoot contrasted with the shouts of laughter from beachgoers nearby, their joy a stark reminder of how far removed I felt from the carefree days of my past. My high school reunion was just a stone's throw away, nestled in the heart of Coral Heights at the old community center. I had come back not to relive cherished memories, but to confront the ghosts that still haunted me. As I walked toward the center, I passed familiar spots. The old basketball court where Jake used to show off his skills, the palm trees that once provided the backdrop for summer love stories, and the bowling alley where I spent more nights than I could count. Each step stung with nostalgia, both sweet and bitter. What if no one shows up? I thought, anxiety creeping in like tendrils of fog. Staring down at my phone, I reminded myself of the messages I had received. Can't wait to see you. And everyone was excited. All of my classmates were buzzing about the reunion, but in truth, there were a few people I wanted to see and a whole lot more that I didn't. The gravel path crunched beneath my sneakers, each sound echoing my apprehension. I focused on the task ahead, shaking off the insecurities that clung to me like cobwebs. With every breath, I envisioned the confrontation with Sarah Collins, the girl who had effortlessly stolen my happiness years ago. She would be there, her laughter still piercing even from a distance. The memory of her voice haunted me, filled with sarcasm and dripping with the satisfaction of having knocked me down. You think you can just come back here and act like nothing happened? I've waited too long for this, I murmured to myself, my pulse quickening at the thought of seeing her. As I finally reached the entrance, I hesitated, a wave of uncertainty washing over me. The community center was bright, its windows glowing with warm light, promising camaraderie and rekindled friendships. Taking a deep breath, I placed my hand on the door handle and pushed it open. The inside was a burst of life. Familiar faces I hadn't seen in nearly a decade laughed, chatted, and embraced one another. Everywhere I looked, old friends shared memories I felt excluded from, watching as they wove stories that danced around my broken past. Rachel, is that really you? A voice called, slicing through my haze of self-doubt. I turned to see Max, my childhood friend, his face lighting up with genuine excitement. Man, I can't believe how long it's been. You look amazing. He enveloped me in a warm hug, and I allowed myself to relax into the gesture, reminding myself that some pieces of the past still felt comforting. Thanks, Max. It's been a while, I replied, trying to project a confidence I didn't quite feel. I mean, if you ditched Coral Heights for New York, you must be doing something right. What's it like up there? Fast-paced but exhilarating. I love it, I said, forcing a smile to cover the fear that was creeping back in. What about you, still running that coffee shop? Max nodded, his expression proud as he scrubbed a hand over the back of his neck. Yep, the Coral Brew is still kicking. You should come by sometime. I'll whip you up my special blend. Sounds perfect. I will, I promised, trying to mask my tension over the tighter knot forming in my stomach. But as we bantered and caught up, in the back of my mind, the clock ticked louder, the moment of truth edging closer. I could almost hear it, sharp and clear, reminding me that Sarah could be anywhere, lurking among the swell of familiar faces. Max eventually pulled me toward a group gathering in the center of the room, surrounded by laughter and cheerful chatter. Come on, everyone would love to see you. Before I could make an excuse, he introduced me to the group. Hey everyone, this is Rachel. You remember her from school? Each face lit up with either excitement or nostalgic recognition, and I felt a swell of warmth flood through me, but faint and mixed quickly with my anxiety. Rachel, wow, I can hardly believe it, said Emily, her auburn curls bouncing as she stepped forward to hug me tightly. You were like this total trendsetter back then, always had the best outfits. How has life been treating you? It's been great, honestly, lots of changes, and now I'm just trying to find my way back home, I answered, forcing levity into my voice. Each smile and friendly gaze felt like a slight salve to my frayed nerves, yet it was overshadowed by the looming confrontation. As the conversations flowed around me, I spotted Sarah across the room. She was laughing with a group of former classmates, her voice infectiously bright and effortlessly commanding the attention of everyone around her. The way she tossed her hair over her shoulder was a move I remembered all too well, and it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I felt like a ghost in the middle of a reunion, invisible beneath the glaring spotlight of her charm. She has no idea what's coming, I thought, my heart thudding heavily in my chest. Can we get a picture? A voice piped up, pulling me from my ire. Before I could make a move, someone had already pulled me into the mixture of arms and laughter that filled the space. I waved and smiled for the camera, trying to blend in and appear casual, but my mind was fixated on Sarah. Rachel, we need you to get in here too, Emily called out, waving me over. We need a group shot. I made my way closer, trying to maintain my composure as I felt every inch closer to the woman who had caused my world to shatter years ago. Sarah caught my eye, and I felt the air between us crackle with unspoken tension. Look who finally decided to grace us with her presence. Rachel Winters, everyone, she threw her arms up, her voice dripping with that syrupy, sugary sweetness that I used to crave but now felt revolting. I forced a smile, my polite mask slipping into place as I approached the group, knowing that I soon would have to face the woman who had stolen everything I held dear back in high school. You look different, like a lot older. But I guess New York takes a toll on you, Sarah sneered, her lips curling slightly as she put on her best attempt at an innocent expression. The laughter around us faded into silence, and I felt every eye on me waiting for my reaction. My breath caught in my throat. Thanks, Sarah, you look wow, still living your high school dream, I see. Crowd still cheering for you, huh? It felt good to see the surprised flicker in her eyes, but anger churned inside me, mixing with adrenaline. Easy there, Rachel. No need to start a fight right now, I reminded myself, feigning calmness as my heart raced. I just thought we would make room for somebody new, but I see some things never change. Oh, that moment felt electric, an undertow of rivalry rearing within me once again. She looked at me, a mask of faux innocence covering her wickedly pleased expression. Aw, sweetie, you know me, I'll always be the same. You were just a footnote in my story. That footnote is going to write a brand new chapter tonight, I thought, balling my fists at my sides. Keeping friends who were once strangers close was easier. I felt the weight of their gazes, and suddenly I was eager to make an example of Sarah and reclaim my life. I raised my chin slightly, preparing my next words like daggers ready to be thrown. At least now I can see that it will take more than superficial charm to hold on to people, Sarah. Maybe your reign is about to crumble. Sarah's smirk faltered for just a moment, but then it returned full force. Oh, Rachel, let's not pretend. You've never been in my league. You've always been the backup singer, the one supporting someone else's spotlight. You have no idea what I've been doing, do you? I shot back, holding her gaze steady, feeling as if the air around us had thickened. I've been building a life that's mine, one that doesn't need your permission to exist. With that, I turned away from the stunned faces, their mouths hanging open like a row of blank pages waiting for me to fill them in. If I was going to make a mark tonight, I needed to work swiftly and strategically. With Sarah's smirk echoing in my mind, I set my sights on the refreshment table. At least there I could gather my thoughts and plot my next move, a move that would carve my name into the very fabric of this night. I felt the eyes trailing me, whispers of intrigue swirling in the air. I poured myself a glass of sparkling water, sat down at the edge of the table, and tried to gather my thoughts amidst the chatter buzzing around me. A plan was forming in the back of my mind, one that revolved around the very essence of betrayal that Sarah had once orchestrated in my life. Each sip of the sparkling water felt like a shift in my resolve, a reminder that I was no longer that girl easily trampled underfoot. Somewhere out there in that crowd, my warriors would await me, and all I needed was the right opportunity to unleash my carefully crafted vengeance. I stood in my empty kitchen, the sunlight streaming through the window illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air, casting long shadows on the tile floor. The scent of the burnt toast from breakfast was still hanging in the air, mixing in a strange way with the salty breeze coming in off the ocean, which was only a few blocks away. It was a morning like any other, but my heart was pounding as I thought about the plan that had been forming in my mind. It was just a few days since I had seen Megan laugh at my expense, and each time I thought about it, the rage inside me grew hotter like fire licking at the walls of a tinderbox. My phone buzzed suddenly, breaking me from my thoughts. I glanced down at the screen, my heart racing as I saw his name, David. I had nearly forgotten about him, a fleeting friend from college who had once helped me through a rough time. He had sent me a message wanting to catch up. I stared at it, chewing on my lip, debating whether to respond or ignore him. "Come on, Rachel, just ignore it. Focus on what you need to do," I murmured to myself, recognizing that my petty desire for comfort could derail all the work I'd put into my plan. But the pull of our old friendship was strong, and a small part of me longed for that connection, even if it was only momentary. That connection had been tangible just a week ago before I had decided to carve out a path for myself. "I can't believe I'm even considering this," I grumbled, shaking my head. I took a few steps over to the counter and grabbed my notepad. I had scribbled ideas and sketches, diagrams if you could call them that, detailing the steps of my plan. Josh, my best friend, hadn't fully understood the lengths I was willing to go to, but this was more than just revenge. This was reclaiming my dignity. I flipped through the pages, my eyes narrowing as they landed on a sketch of the community center. The event was just around the corner, Megan's charity gala, the very event where she had laughed at my dress, a chance to turn the tables to show everyone just how foolish she truly was. "Rachel, you can do this," I whispered, reaffirming myself. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes and picturing the gala. I could almost hear the music, the laughter, the clinking of glass. The room would be adorned with twinkling fairy lights, flowers of every hue, and laughter echoing off the walls. "I'm going to make sure this becomes the most unforgettable night of her life, just not for the reasons she thinks," I said quietly, releasing a shaky breath. I grabbed my phone again, finally deciding to type back to David. My fingers danced over the keys as I sent a casual reply, just enough to let him know I was still here. But underlying that casualness was a weight, a shadow that crept over my thoughts. This was not just about revenge anymore. It was about finding a new version of myself, stronger and less prone to weakness. "When do you want to meet?" I added, battling the voice in my head that warned me against getting too close to anyone. I watched the screen intently, waiting for those three little dots that would signal he was typing back. Just then, the sound of gravel crunching under tires caught my attention outside. My heart dropped as I recognized the old blue truck rolling down the street. Josh. I had called him earlier that morning, asking him to come over so I could run my ideas by him. A burst of anticipation surged in my chest as I heard the door creak open. "Hey, Rachel, you here?" He called out, his voice full of that familiar energy I always found comforting. "Yeah, I'm in the kitchen. Come on in," I replied, matching his enthusiasm. As he stepped into the room, I could see he had the same wild curls and bright smile that had gotten us through the craziness of college, but today something behind his eyes spoke of concern. "You look like you're plotting something," he said, raising an eyebrow as he approached. I drummed my fingers against the notepad, hesitating for a moment, feeling the weight of my secret pressing against my chest. "You remember what happened at the last gala, right?" I asked, trying to decipher how much to reveal. He scoffed lightly, crossing his arms. "Hard to forget. Megan made an example out of you, didn't she? Who does that, making fun of someone's outfit? She's got issues." "Yeah, issues, and she's got influence. Everyone adores her, but I have a plan, Josh. I don't want to be pitied anymore. I want her to feel just a fraction of what she put me through," I said, the words slipping out before I could hold them back. "Whoa, you are serious," he replied, his voice dropping an octave, sensing the weight of my determination. "What do you have in mind?" I took a deep breath. "It's a surprise, but trust me, it'll be unforgettable." Waving my hand dramatically, I laid it on the table, indicating he should lean in closer. "This is not just gossip or glam. I'm going to expose her at the gala." "Whoa, Rachel, wait, slow down," Josh interrupted, shaking his head. "You can't just—" "Why not?" I challenged, lifting my chin defiantly. "Why can't I? She made me the laughingstock. If I let this go, what's next? I am tired of being overlooked, Josh." He softened at my words and rubbed the back of his neck. "I get it, but just think this through. What if it backfires? What if people see you as the villain?" I looked into his eyes, knowing that he only wanted the best for me. "Then the point will be to show them what a real villain looks like," I replied softly. The words hung in the air, thick with tension. He sighed and leaned back, contemplating. "All right, I'm listening, but you have to promise me one thing." "What's that?" "Don't let this consume you. You're better than that. If you go down this path, you have to be ready for the consequences." I blinked, his warning wrapping around my thoughts. The truth was, I didn't really care what happened to me. What mattered was making Megan feel my pain, my indignation. But Josh's concerns echoed in my head as he watched me closely, searching for any signs of uncertainty. "I promise I won't lose myself," I said, even if I wasn't entirely sure I believed those words. "All right then, spill. What's the plan?" Josh pressed, clearly intrigued despite his reservations. I took one last deep breath, excitement buzzing in every corner of my mind. "I'm going to sabotage her speech," I declared, leaning closer as I lowered my voice. "I want to trick her into thinking she's going to win some big award, but then something surprising is going to happen." He raised an eyebrow again. "Like what? Like a taunt?" I smiled darkly. "Think of a grand reveal. I plan to expose her facade in front of everyone. When she stands up there ready to gloat, I will reveal her secrets, how she's been cheating on her charity work, taking every opportunity to appear as the philanthropic golden girl while really playing everyone like a fool. She doesn't know it yet, but I've been collecting evidence." My heart raced as I laid out my plan in meticulous detail, and Josh nodded along, alternately impressed and wary. "You've really put a lot of thought into this," he said, running a hand through his hair. "But how do you get the evidence?" "Piece by piece," I replied cryptically. "I've been talking to people, listening in where I can, a little bit of good old-fashioned sleuthing." He chuckled lightly, the tension breaking a small amount. "Sleuthing, huh? I should have guessed you'd turn into a detective with all the free time you've had after work." "Ha, don't underestimate me," I shot back, feeling a surge of confidence. "I have resources, Josh, sources, contacts." I continued, letting the words linger, allowing him to ponder the lengths I had gone to. "But what I really need is someone on the inside, a whistleblower at the gala." Josh's eyes lit up. "You're not serious." "Dead serious," I responded, leaning closer again. "I need you to find a way to get backstage, get Megan to confide in you about something. She's too arrogant to suspect you. She trusts you." "Rachel, I don't know, it sounds risky." "So is doing nothing," I shot back. "Come on, Josh. This is our chance. People want the truth and I want justice. You'd be helping me." He sighed deeply, clearly torn. "If they think you're playing these games, it could end badly. You might ruin your reputation in the process." "Let them talk," I shrugged, feeling my resolve harden. "Let them see me as the villain so long as they also see the real piece of trash Megan is. I don't care about my reputation, I care about exposing hers." "Fine," he relented, albeit reluctantly. "But watch your back. Your intention is one thing, but if you're not careful, it might backfire in ways you didn't see coming." "Don't worry, I'll be careful," I assured him, masking the fear brewing in the pit of my stomach. I had spent so long feeling weak, and the idea of stepping out of that shadow was intoxicating. As we wrapped up our conversation, adrenaline surged inside me, reminiscent of our college days when we tackled challenges together, charting paths through uncertainty. "I'm doing this, Josh. I'm taking back my power," I stated firmly. He nodded slowly, a flicker of support crossing his face. "All right, just promise you'll be smart about it." "Always," I replied, a smile creeping onto my lips. As he left, I felt the thrill of the challenge crackling in the air around me. The gala was going to be a turning point, not just for Megan, but for me too. This was my time, and I could almost hear the soundtrack of my triumph playing in my mind. I stood up taller, strong in my resolve, preparing for the confrontation that was on the horizon. Revenge was just around the corner, and soon, laughter would echo through the room for all the wrong reasons. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an orange and purple glow over Coral Heights. I felt a surge of anticipation coursing through my veins, the landscape outside the window a fiery reflection of the turmoil inside me. I stood in front of my mirror, staring at my reflection. My dark hair fell around my shoulders, framing my face, which was taut with a mix of determination and rage. I had finally come to grips with the fact that the time for reckoning had arrived. This was it. Every small step I had taken over the last few months had led me to this moment. "Rachel, are you ready?" The voice of my best friend Shelley broke through my thoughts, and I turned to see her leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, an encouraging smile on her face despite the thin aura of worry around her. Her fiery red hair glowed in the warm light, and I could see her fidgeting slightly, her energy humming just beneath the surface. "You know you can back out, right?" "No," I said, my voice steady except for the slight quiver at the edges that I couldn't entirely mask. "I'm not backing out now, not after everything." Her eyes softened, and I could feel her concern wrap around me like a warm blanket, but I could not afford to weaken. "It's just you seem so certain. What if this doesn't go the way you think it will?" I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the reality of my emotions. I envisioned the faces of the people who had wronged me, the betrayal I had endured, the friendships that had crumbled, the years of friendship wasted. "I have to do this, Shelley, for me, for everyone they hurt." She stepped closer, her expression shifting from worry to fierce advocacy. "Okay, but I will be right here, okay? Just a call away if you need me." The sincerity in her voice offered a flicker of comfort. "Thank you," I replied, the weight of her support a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. My phone buzzed on the dresser, cutting through the moment. I recognized the name immediately, jarred, my old friend turned nemesis. I felt my stomach tight. "Hey, I should get that," I said, my heart racing. I picked up the phone and said, "Hello, Rachel, you want to meet?" Jard's voice was relaxed but smug, the kind of tone that made my skin crawl. He had been trying to lure me into a trap for weeks now, pretending as if all was forgiven, as though those years would not forever taint our past. "Busy," I replied, an edge creeping into my voice despite my best efforts. "What do you want, Jared? I think you know, we can't leave things like this, can we? The last meeting ended poorly, don't you think?" His words dripped with false charm. There was a silence that sat heavy between us, and I could almost hear him smirk. "Why should I meet with you?" "You had your chance, remember?" Jared chuckled softly, the sound carrying a hint of menace. "Let us be honest, Rachel, you need closure, and so do I. Meet me at the pier tonight, 7 o'clock, I'll bring the important documents." The emphasis he placed on those two words made my heartbeat quicken. "Not interested," I shot back, but there was a tremor in my voice, an inkling of doubt that gnawed at the edges of my resolve. "I can make this worth your while, Rachel. You know what I have, and you know its importance. It's your choice." The line went dead, and I stood there staring at the phone, my stomach churning. I could practically feel the weight of old secrets and betrayals hanging in the air. "What did he say?" Shelley asked, her eyes burning with curiosity. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. He wants to meet at the pier tonight. He said he had documents, whatever that means. He thinks he can pull me back in. Shelley raised her eyebrows, her expression transitioning from concern to admiration. You should go. This could be your chance to finally confront him on your terms. I know, I said, but the thought made my stomach turn. Do I really want to see him? What if he tries to manipulate me again? We can't control what he does, but you can show him that you are not the same girl he once knew. You're stronger now, Rachel. Remember that. Her words resonated within me, but doubt danced along the edges of my mind. I imagined Jared's face twisted in that familiar smirk, how he could make me feel so small with just a glance. I was no longer that person, yet it felt like a lifetime of confidence was being called into question. The pier, the site of so many memories, both good and bad. I thought back to the summer nights spent there, laughing as waves crashed against the wooden supports, the smell of salt in the air, the feeling of freedom. But those days felt distant, clouded by the darkness that Jared had infused into every corner of my memory. Are you sure you want me to come with you? Shelley's voice broke through, and I looked up at her. No, I have to do this alone, I said, my heart pounding. This is something I have to confront without anyone else. It's personal. Just promise me you will keep your guard up. He's manipulative, and I do not trust him. Her sincerity pierced through the fog of my fear. I promise, I said, genuinely meaning it. Tonight will be different. The sun continued to dip lower in the sky as I gathered my things. I wore my emotions like armor. Every step I took towards the pier fueled my determination. The crisp evening air welcomed me as I stepped outside, moving through Coral Heights with purpose. The familiar sights rushed past, the cheerful storefronts, the whispers of laughter from nearby cafes, but none of it mattered. I was heading towards the inevitable confrontation. As I neared the pier, the sound of water slapping against the posts grew louder, a rhythmic reminder of time passing. I felt a shiver slither down my spine, an instinctive warning, but I shrugged it off. I was determined to face my past, no matter how unsettling. The old wooden boards creaked beneath my feet, the salty scent swirling in the air. As I approached the end of the pier, my heart raced with anxious anticipation. Jared stood there, leaning against one of the railings, the setting sun casting him in shadow. For a moment I almost hesitated, caught off guard by how the light fell around him, contrasting with the darkness of who he had become. The memories flooded back, the laughter, the camaraderie, and the fateful choices that had drawn us apart. Rachel, he greeted with an insincere grin, his brown eyes glinting with false innocence. Glad you could make it. I folded my arms, unwilling to show how his presence unsettled me. Get to the point, Jared. What do you want? I miss this. He gestured to the surroundings, and I could tell he was trying to play nice, but I was focused. Is that right? Is this another game you're playing? I said sharply, keeping my voice steady. Not a game, he replied, his tone shifting slightly. Just reminiscing. We used to rule this place together, you know. Used to, I echoed, letting the bitterness seep into my words. Look, I'm not interested in a stroll down memory lane. What's in those documents? Jared straightened, his gaze suddenly serious. You know what they are, right? All those figures, the notes, the dark truths. You really want to go this route? He paused, gauging my reactions. This isn't a game, Rachel. There's a lot at stake. Then hand them over. I know about the drugs you dealt, your schemes under the radar. You think I'm afraid? His expression hardened. Fear, is that what you think? You should be afraid of what could happen if I release those documents publicly. It could ruin families, yours included. Thou shalt not threaten me, Jared, I stated firmly, anger boiling beneath my skin. I've dealt with enough of your threats, you don't scare me anymore. His eyes narrowed, but I saw a flicker of something softer beneath his bravado. That moment passed quickly, his features settling into that familiar arrogance. You and I both know I can ruin you. His voice lowered, becoming more menacing. Or I can help you. Think of all those wrongs you want to right. We could work together, I laughed bitterly. Why would I ever trust you again? You had your chance, you broke every promise, you hurt me. Rachel, it was complicated, he shot back, throwing his hands in the air. It's not like everything went according to my plan. I didn't mean for it to spiral. I lost control. What control do you think you ever had? I stepped closer, my fists clenched. You played everyone. You turned friends into enemies. You turned me into someone I never wanted to be. Then why are you here? He countered, taking a step toward me, his posture shifting to something almost pleading. If you think you can fix everything alone, you're deluding yourself. I can help you. I hesitated just for an instant, grappling with the emotions that threatened to rise. You're not my savior, Jared. You're the monster. Am I, or am I just a reflection of the choices you made? Because I remember you, Rachel. You were never just a victim. You wanted power just like me. Fury ignited in my chest, and I felt the weight of his words like a brick against my heart. What you turned me into was her. I don't want to be that person anymore. I can help you be more than that, he offered, almost desperately. I can give you the tools to take back control. Think about it. I took a step back, shaking my head as I processed what he was saying. This is so twisted, Jared. You want to drag me back into your mess. An icy silence enveloped us, and I felt the tension building like a storm above. The wind picked up, making the water beneath us lapping against the posts sound like whispers urging me to walk away. Fine, I stated coldly. If you think I'll just fall for your nonsense again, you're mistaken. A flicker of anger danced across his features, then he dropped his look, glancing at the water. You're making a mistake. Done being scared of you, I replied defiantly. You don't get to control my narrative anymore. Then you should be careful, he shot back, voice low and steely. I know things that can destroy you. This isn't just about you anymore. The air between us buzzed with tension, and I could feel my breath coming in short gasps. Take your best shot. I'm done running. We stood there, two figures locked in a standoff, shadows chasing each other beneath the twilight sky. I felt a fire coursing through my veins. I needed to stand tall to shed the past. Stop trying to intimidate me. Jard came closer again, but this time I stepped forward too. Let me show you something, he said, reaching into a bag slung by his side. My stomach twisted as I watched him pull out a thick folder, the papers sticking out awkwardly. What are you doing? I demanded, more of a warning than a question. Working with you is smart, Rachel. We can gain more power that way. With the right information, you can come back on top. He laid the folder flat on the wooden surface of the pier. Reality washed over me. Take it, you'll need it to make the right decision. My heart raced, an internal battle between curiosity and caution raging within. You expect me to believe you, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You can't move forward without the truth, Rachel. What do you know about truth? This is your idea of a sick joke. The wind howled around us, whisking strands of hair into my face. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears, and I hesitated, thoughts swirling in my head. You're afraid, he stated, his voice dropping to a hiss. Admit it, you're terrified of what you don't know. What if those papers hold your key to freedom? What if you want to open the door to your past instead of shutting it out? The offer hung heavy in the air, and my mind raced through memories of all the secrets I buried deep down. You think I could take a shortcut with you? Look at what you've become. I would never trust you again. Then you choose ignorance, he sneered. You choose to wallow in the past while playing the game blind. I stepped back, fighting the urge to relieve the pressure creeping into my chest. And you act like you care. All you want is power. Power is the only true currency in this world, Rachel. You know that. Stop being naive. Thunder crackled in the distance, a storm brewing somewhere far away, a mirror to the storm within me. I won't play along. You want to destroy others to find light. I'm ready to rise and start a new chapter. Without you. You'll regret this, he responded, voice low and dangerous, but there was a hint of uncertainty there too. Maybe, I said, turning away, prepared to walk away. But I'd rather regret it on my own terms than be trapped in your web of deceit forever. I took a few brisk steps back towards land, heart pounding with every movement, confidence building. But just as I turned to leave, Jard's voice echoed behind me, filled not with cruelty but desperation. Rachel, I paused for just a moment, feeling the weight of everything slipping. The tide ebbed, and with it came memories I fought to escape from. I looked back, and there he stood, raw and vulnerable, perhaps even broken. Don't do this. You are throwing everything away, everything we built, that bond. It's not our bond anymore, it's a shackle. Without waiting for a reply, I walked away, knowing he could no longer reach me. With every step, the past slipped behind me like fading shadows, and I could almost feel the grip of fear loosen. The sun dipped beneath the horizon, leaving a canvas of dark blues and purples behind. I stepped onto solid land, turning my back to the pier that had held so many fragments of my life. I would no longer be held captive by what was, but would step boldly into what could be, and as I walked into the night, I whispered a silent vow to myself. I would create a new dawn, one not colored by fear, but by strength, resilience, and unwavering hope. Tonight was the beginning, not of a confrontation, but of liberation, and finally I felt truly free.